Good evening and welcome. I'm calling to order the meeting of the Newburyport School Committee for Monday, March 4th. Mrs. Kennedy, would you please call the roll?
Mr. DeCanta?
Here.
Mr. Cole?
Here.
Mr. Menon?
Here.
Mayor Holliday?
Present.
Mr. Hawkeiser?
Here.
Mr. Reardon?
Here.
And Mr. Callahan?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Can you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I understand, Mr. Cole, you had something you would like to...
Yeah.
And Mr. Reardon. And Mr. Reardon?
Yeah.
Okay. Give you the floor.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Holliday. I respectfully ask to speak in remembrance of Mr. Robert M. Sprague, who passed away on February 26th. He was 81. Mr. Sprague was born in North Adams and embraced his upbringing there as one of 8 children. A class president at Drury High School, he then attended North Adams State College and was a member of the Army National Guard. He went on to graduate from the University of Miami, where his passion for teaching English was sparked and nurtured. Mr. Sprague taught in Newburyport, first at the Jackman School, and soon after at Newburyport High School, where he taught English. He later became the English department chairman. Mr. Sprague was the first recipient of the Mullen Award for Teaching Excellence. He earned and was well known for his reputation of maintaining high standards for his students and for his dedication to helping his students write well. And from speaking with some of his colleagues this past weekend, each benefited from their experience working with him, learning to teach well from Bob. Upon retiring from teaching in 1992, Mr. Sprague served as a crossing guard for 10 years, delighting in his interactions with kids each day. He later became a grandfather and great-grandfather. He enjoyed gardening, listening to music, favoring jazz, Latin jazz, and Celtic, and traveling to Ireland to research his grandmother's Limerick roots, and taking in the local traditional music and a warm atmosphere of pubs all over the Emerald Isle. Mr. Sprague was a self-confident, humble man with a strong set of values. He rarely judged others, didn't seek approval, and thus lived a contented life. He will be missed for his wry sense of humor, timely and succinct commentary, and the twinkle in his eye, and his love of a good laugh. At this time, may joy and peace surround all those who knew him. May we have a moment of silence for Mr. Robert Sprague. Thank you.
Mr. Reardon. Yeah, just to piggyback on that, I was very close with the Sprague family, so it was very sad to see Bob pass. I know he'd been sick recently, but it's nice he's got some peace. We had another death just recently. Kevin Sutherland passed away, which is still in shock over, but Alan, President Hans Sullivan works here at the Brez, so I just, this guy was a Wall of Famer, good Newburyport family. 3 kids all went through Newburyport, did a lot in the community. Just really one of the nicest men you'd ever have a chance to meet. So I just would like to also do a moment of silence thinking of Ellen and her family, and just know that their Clipper family is here for them during this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean, thank you. Steve. We don't have public comment listed on here, but I would offer a moment of public comment if anybody in the public would like to comment. If you could just give us your name and address so that we can capture it for the minutes.
Hi, I'm Amy Warshall, and I live at 47 Plummer Avenue. And I just wanted to thank you for all the hard work and dedication that you've put forth on the school committee, and the thoughtful work that you put towards the school calendar. I, for one, and I know amongst many others, are very grateful for the post-Labor Day start. I hope that we continue with that is a permanent change. And along those lines, I saw something interesting today, and I know it's been brought up before, the blizzard bags or snow bags. I know that they have a pilot program in, I believe, West Newbury, Groveland, Georgetown. Duxbury is doing a pilot program as well. They have a week in Duxbury to complete the work. They have 2 weeks in West Newbury, so I know that there was talk about this before on somebody's page. a year ago. But anyway, if you have multiple children, and if this is a hardship, it's not due the very next day. So I think maybe that's something to consider. I believe in West Newbury, it's the first 3 days, snow days. If there's any after that, they'd have to make them up. I don't know if we would ever consider something like that. Maybe it's 2 snow days and we make them up, and then we do blizzard days once it gets, I don't know, 3 days or more, but something to consider. What else did I want to say? I'm fighting a cold, so my head is, I was wondering where we are on the Start School Later, if that's something that's, I don't see that on the agenda, but I'd love to be involved in that initiative. Anyway, that's it. Thank you. I appreciate your hard work.
Thank you. Thank you. Amy, what I would say is that right now it is not on the agenda, but it is often reported out during the superintendent's report. So whatever progress or whatever we're doing, he will often add that as part of his report during the meeting.
Oh, thank you.
So that's one way to keep updated.
Okay, thank you.
Terrific. Consent agenda, warrants and minutes. Do we have any warrants?
Yes, we have 2.
Mr. DeCantor. Oh, I'm sorry, it's Mr. Copeland.
2 warrants, 2 warrants. Okay. All right, I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $2,313.37 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Second.
Conversation, dialogue, none. Let's vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Thank you.
And the last warrant, I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $208,486.95 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Any conversation, questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. And I thank you, Mr. Cole. There was quite a scrum for who would do the warrants at the last meeting, and so hold on tight to that
Okay,
job.
all right, thanks.
People want it. And Nick did a terrific job.
I actually tuned in on a replay Friday night, so I
Good, you saw it,
something.
you saw
Yeah,
it.
I saw it.
He was,
Big Friday night.
Late, it was late. It's probably after the game.
we have a set of minutes from 2/26/19. Thank you, Mrs. Kennedy. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Any comments, changes on the minutes? Oh, do we need a second, right? We need a second.
Second.
Good, thank you. And can you tell it's going to be a short meeting? Okay. Any comments, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? One present.
Abstain.
Two present. Terrific, that passes. We're going to hold off on the recognitions of staff and students. I had to argue with Sean about this, but we finally agreed that we weren't going to ask teachers and students to come in on a snow day to be recognized as teachers and students. He wanted them here. We fought all day long, and finally this is how we ended up. However, we do have a couple of staff who have come in, but and our representative is not here. Do we have the presentation on the monument, or is that going to be postponed as well?
That's also postponed.
Terrific. Which brings us down to our guest stars for the evening, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
At this time, we'd like to have Lisa Furlong and Andy Wolf come on up and do their presentation. I know we talked about the work, what they did with CSSR, with the student forums, and the teacher shadow days. Originally, we were going to have a discussion, and we thought Mr. Wolf did the PowerPoint, but this time it was Principal Furlong. So during the discussion, they can talk to you through some of the slides. But it was a great couple weeks where we received a lot of wonderful input from teachers and students regarding curriculum instruction and
I'm
assessment.
grateful for the two principals for
Yes.
getting out of their pajamas today to come in for this presentation.
Okay. So I'll just give you a little bit of background. This summer, Sean took Andy and I to seminar, workshop. I think we started one in Connecticut, and then a second one followed up at Brown University, just to learn a little bit more about the organization called Center for Secondary School Reform. And, you know, I think in working with them, Andy and I were just trying to think about like where our schools were at, how the work that CSSR does fits in with the work that we saw ahead of us in the school year. And one of the big ideas that they have is really creating structures to develop opportunities for student voice. And so we worked with them, and along with Angela, set up kind of what ended up being a week-long thing, which was at the same time we were doing Billy, so we were kind of going a little bit crazy with getting subs and everything, but it ended up being a really great week of student shadow time and a student forum the week of February 4th through 8th. The purpose, again, really just to provide a structure to create a replicable process where we have an ongoing opportunity to involve student voice in the decision-making process, and also to help our teachers kind of be realistic about what school looks like from the student perspective. We're often looking at it in terms of what are our accountability, what do we need to do in terms of curriculum frameworks, what do we need to do in terms of supervision and safety, and sometimes I think we lose track of all this stuff that we put together to meet those needs. What does it look like on the student end? Want to add anything to that?
No, I think
I told him he couldn't talk too much.
we learned from last week.
So it really came in two parts across the week. We started on Monday with a student forum. That was attended by, I think, like 28 students.
28 kids.
Yeah. 12 students from the middle school, the rest from the high school, students representing different kind of walks of life, if you will, within our 6 through 12 culture. And they were facilitated through 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock day-long process by the CSSR facilitators. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then the second part was a shadow day, and those were two separate days. So on Tuesday, the middle school ran our shadow day. On Thursday, the high school ran their shadow day, and then on Friday, Andy and I got together with some of the administrative team of both the middle school and the high school with the CSSR leadership.
How were the students selected?
The students were selected based on, for the middle school, I asked each team to give me 2 or 3 names, and then we just went through it that way, trying to represent as many different types of students in the building. I don't know if
In the
high
same
school-
way, making sure that we represented the demographics
Okay.
of the schools.
Knowing that we really only had a small number of students to pick, so hopefully, Sean also had come in earlier at both the high school and the middle school to do some forums, and so it's like different students we're trying to hit at different times. Here's our young collection of students. They did some work in the library, just some cute pictures. I think somewhere I had a video, but I'm not sure if I'm able to show it. At the end of it, what the forum was asking for the students was, what's working for you in the Newburyport Public Schools? What's not working as well for you in the Newburyport Public Schools? And they collected this information, and in the beginning, the students start in multi-age groupings, and at the end of the day, they finished in grade level groupings and did a presentation to Andy and I, which we have videotaped, which we'll be sharing with our faculty. I will be doing that this week, and Andy will be doing that.
Be later after the MCAS
Yeah.
administration.
Yeah, and it wasn't, I don't think, their presentations were some of the things that we knew already from having talked to students, but incorporated a lot of this information. What works for them, what doesn't work for them. I think some of the themes and patterns that we have were, I don't think they were unexpected to us, but I think it is a reminder to us as this is work that's still ahead of us. It's not work that is complete. Some of it is specific to a particular school. You can see at the bottom, it's not working for students that sometimes Gold has more homework than Crimson. And that split explores the 7th grade block. We have one block in our schedule that's split across lunch. I don't know if you want to speak to any of that.
Could you go into just a little bit more depth about what doesn't work for me, students' behavior? What are they referring to?
So I think part of that is, so we've been doing a lot of work at both schools around the vaping. So just in terms of comfort level of kids and students recognizing that sometimes their behaviors impacts the comfort of other people in the building was a big piece
Okay.
of that.
So that's still a work in progress.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes.
What was actually kind of interesting about that, also in the What Works For Me column, this is actually just bits and pieces of what is a page and a half long document that we got from CSSR. But there's also something on the other column that was something cute, like, good people are here too, or something like that. So you could see there was a little bit of conversation among the students of seeing the diversity of people and the diversity of behaviors.
So there's a more thorough version of this?
It's a longer list, I wouldn't know that, not necessarily more,
I guess
it's
it's
still a
like
list.
detailed, like I'm just curious
Yeah.
about like gym grades, like how, I don't know how gym grades doesn't work for people. Or-
Some of the students were talking about how they didn't like to get a grade for physical education.
Because, like, did they say why, or just
Well,
didn't want a grade?
I can tell you why.
I can too. I hear about it a lot.
No,
I think, basically the point of the day,
It's just-
David, was to get big picture ideas, to have them think more deeply about school and what school could look like. And so, although we're putting some of these little things up there, we didn't get deep into the specifics of all of them. They were really looking for the students to have a voice in terms of some of the, you know, where are we headed with deeper learning? Where are we headed with skills-based instruction? Where are we headed with like PBIS in terms of culture development and stuff like that? But I think all these little small things come together to feel something for a student.
I was
And we
gonna
saw
say,
that in the shadows day too.
I love the focus on the small stuff,
Yeah.
because, like, you know, I think students oftentimes spend a lot of their thinking on the small stuff. Because something like students' behavior could come up in periods 1, 4, 7, 9. So it's no longer, it's a small thing in each class, but it's over the course of a day, it becomes sort of hellacious for kids. Or gym grades, if they have it 3 times a week, it could be anxiety and frustration. So I think it's really important. I love the work. That's why I was kind of curious as to what exactly they were talking about.
And I think another big trend from the student forum day was just the relevance of what they're doing in their classes and how it connects to bettering themselves beyond high school. Because one of the things that was definitely clear from the high school students, and actually when our teachers went around for the shadow experience, you could feel it, where a lot of what students feel like they're doing is so that they can have those better grades to be able to get into college, versus really seeing how it connects to them developing as their own person. And so I know, like, when the high school kids were just talking about the gym grades, that was part of it, you know, more of the wellness focus versus going to class and just getting a grade because of
It's a
participation.
subject, it's, my personal experience was that I always found gym grades to be highly subjective. And it just, it just didn't work for me. And I don't think it's something we should be graded on.
And this,
personally.
what's great with this work that Andy and Lisa and CSSR completed, it really ties into the work of skills-based competency. The same ideas that the students are sharing on what they would like to see in class is the same work that Billy Donegan has done with our teachers about differentiation, understanding learning styles, teachers modifying, you know, the classes.
In your experience, did the teachers make those connections? Did they see the application to what Billy is
In
working
the
on?
debrief sessions, definitely,
Okay.
they saw that.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And I think what's nice about it too is it's sort of multiple iterations. So the first day starting with the student forum and having an outside person sort of elicit student ideas. Following that up with then in the NOC, it was the building leadership team. So I have a team of 8 people, including myself, Nick Marcos, and the CSSR. So there were 12 of us shadowing students. And you'll see, these are just one-line observations from teachers who were doing the student shadow day, that their observations are very similar to the student observations that we saw in the student forum. So what's nice is for us to be able to go back to the faculty and say, yeah, you know what, when we were passing through the school day from 7:30 to 2 o'clock, going to lunch, going to physical education, going from one class to another class, being in a crowded hallway, we were feeling some of the same things that the students were expressing on the forum.
Yep, it was basically the same thing for the high school experience. Very similar, just from going from one class to the next, but one of the big comments that a teacher had made is like, you can just see the different culture and sometimes different expectations from one period to the next. So just being able to make that transition. But then also at the same time, another observation where, you know, all they did all day long was sit. So being able to have that opportunity to move around, so you go from one class to the next, you have your 4 minutes to walk from one room to the next, but then you're sitting for the entire period. So just being able to have that perspective of what it's like to be a student, at least in our case up at the high school, and then for Lisa at the middle school.
I think another common observation was transition time, that how quickly you have to go from like thinking about a math problem to answering a open response question in an English class, and just that shifting of gears sort of was giving people a little bit of a whiplash feeling.
Did teachers know that other teachers were coming into their rooms, and did they know when they were coming?
Yeah, well, they knew what students we were shadowing and who the teachers were that were shadowing. Yeah.
But I think it was pretty genuine.
I
I don't think there was anything changed for the experience. At least that's the perspective
Yeah,
we all had.
that was my perspective
Yeah.
too. I mean,
Yeah.
being in classrooms quite often,
Yep.
my shadowing day was really fun. I think that was another side benefit that I didn't realize was gonna come of it, is that we built like cute little like partnerships between the teachers and the students who we shadowed. You know, one of our teachers and her student, they even dressed the same for the day. And they made like a plan for lunch, and she brought treats and stuff. So that I hadn't anticipated, and I think that was fun. So where we're going from here, I don't know if you want to start?
Sure. So we've been doing, from the start of the school year, we had a team of teachers with Angela. We were able to start working on a vision of a high school graduate, but really focusing in on what skills we want to make sure all kids graduating from Newburyport Public Schools are equipped with upon graduation. And then this is really kind of our opportunity through this experience with the shadowing and the student forum of really trying to pull and connect these together along with the work that we've done with the student council, because they really all go hand in hand. So it's a matter of us making sure that we're equipping the school with the structures that we don't lose what we're learning. And that's really the great part about the work our team is doing on the vision of a high school graduate, is that exactly what we learned from the kids in terms of skills, but then also the skills-based instruction that we were able to get through Billy Donegan. It is all interconnected. And so through the month of March, the different subcommittees we have happening at the high school will be meeting, but then we'll have an opportunity to bring the teams together. So after the MCAS administration, we're really able to kind of have a clear picture of what our goals will be for next school year and start working with the teachers on those. Particularly realizing that advisory is a big place that we'll be focusing on. And that was a piece that we learned a lot even from the kids on that day, because they have a lot to say about our advisory program in terms of making sure that it's something that they feel is useful and beneficial as they start to really plan for life beyond high school. So it was exciting that you could see all the connections and really now using time to make sure that we're able to demonstrate what we'll do with it.
Advisory didn't come up with our students, which isn't surprising because we don't have one, but it did come up quite a bit with our teachers when we did the debrief with CSSR in terms of the day and things that we could build, structures we could build into the day. Where we've decided to go with it at the NOC is that the people who participated in the shadow day had such a good time that they felt it would be beneficial for the entire staff to also participate in some form of a shadow day. So the way we think we can pull that off is for our building leadership team. We're going to break into sort of sub-teams of 2, and we'll have it'll probably take us 5 days in terms of logistically making it happen. So there's gonna be a team facilitating each one of the 5 shadow days, so that our whole staff will be able to shadow a student at least once. And then at the end of that, when we've got everybody through, the idea is to come together as sort of a reunion with the students who were shadowed, the teachers after they've shadowed, and facilitate a reflection process in terms of the information we've gathered. So I'm not sure where we'll go from there, but it depends on sort of how that day turns out. But the idea, I think, of a reunion of the students as well would be fun. So, yeah, that's where we're headed. That's it.
Does anybody have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. So, I guess I'll get right to the point. Where does collaboration fit in all this? Because I looked through your specs, if you will, or what you're looking for, and I don't see anything about collaboration, and I guess that would seem important. And I know you're looking for a certain thing, but I think to leave collaboration out of it, especially if you're looking at kids going from middle school to high school, seeing where they're at, because the type of learning kids are going to do as they get toward college is different. And I've often heard that, quote, there's a lot of collaboration going on at the high school, but I don't see it all the time. And I'm just curious if this exercise can lead into bringing that out or showing how students are working together, how teachers are allowing that, because, and I could be wrong in saying this, but there may be some teachers that maybe don't allow students to be working together and say a problem set of calculus problems, for example, or something else like that. So I'm just curious where collaboration fits in all this.
I think one of the exciting things for our pilot teams that were part of the Billy Donegan training, so when we were actually doing our learning walks before the February break at the high school, we were in a few of the classrooms where teachers had been part of the training. And one of the tools that was being used was the collaboration rubric that they had created. So where the teachers in the 10th grade English teachers, they actually did a lesson explicitly on skills associated with collaboration, but then also making it clear to kids, this is what I should be seeing when you're doing it, so that kids are getting coached and being provided with feedback alongside the content that they're doing in the classroom.
Well,
So that was an exciting thing to see. And then also, before February vacation, our student council had their first meeting. So they've been doing a lot of work to really they redid their whole constitution, and now through the advisory program, there's a student representative from every advisory room that's part of the student council, and they ran their first meeting, and their second one is March 11th. And so the student council had actually presented to the whole faculty back in January, because part of their plan was to use school time to run their meetings, because one of their dilemmas that they would have is after-school meetings weren't well attended. And so based off of their presentation and then some questions back and forth from the faculty, it was decided that they'd be able to use time during the day, which was great. So those are just some of the examples.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Other feedback? Dave, did you have something? You looked like you had something to say.
I was thinking that I love the idea of teachers going into each other's rooms. And I was listening to you think about, like, logistically how difficult it is to make that happen for a whole day. So I'm wondering if we utilize anything like, I mean, I heard you say learning walks, everyone's got a different definition of what that means. But like bringing teachers in for, we'll give you a period or two to go see 5 or 10 different classrooms, kind of a thing, instead of the whole day structure, which could be debilitating, kind of like what do they call it, like pineappling. You guys heard of that? Where I'll send you the link later. But it's all about like getting teachers in to see each other's rooms. Pineapple has to do with like some welcoming custom.
Oh, it's a Hawaiian thing.
Hawaiian thing, right? Where you give a pineapple, so they call it pineappling. You're welcoming other teachers into your rooms. But I was just wondering if we do a lot of that.
Getting mean, that is something that we very much encourage at the NOC, but again, like logistically, sometimes it's difficult. I will say for sure that's something that with our new teachers, we very much encourage. So Lisa Alexander, as an example, is a teacher who did a workshop this summer on stations-based teaching. And she's got a team of like 25 or so teachers who took that class. So this week, I think this week and next week, she's got sort of an open classroom for teachers who have taken that workshop to come see how she's got her stations running. And I know that's something that we are also freeing up the time for our new teachers in the NOC school anyways, to get into our classroom for a couple of periods over the course of the week. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's like the best way to learn from people who you're comfortable with. What do you do? What do you do that's great? What do you do that works? How
And if
can I
you're
get
gonna
better?
see similar content teachers versus something that you totally different than what you teach, you pick up a lot of things that you wouldn't.
Yeah, I think we're also hoping that with the pilot group, working on the skills-based learning, that there'll be a subset, sort of a train-the-trainer model, where we'll have a subset of really strong leaders who also will cycle people through their room to see it in action. As that pilot gets stronger and those people feel more comfortable with the model.
And Lisa, if I can just add to what Lisa said, when Lisa Alexander taught the course on the learning stations, she went in and observed every participant in the class as they implemented their station. And now it's the flip side, so now she's opened the door for them to come and see the way her work is going. But it is great, and I know that peer observation is such a valuable thing. It is just always making the time for it. It's part of our mentor-mentee program. Our mentors participate in it with their mentees. They each do a minimum of 3 peer observations in a year. And when they do their reflections at the end of the year, without a doubt, it's the thing that everybody talks about the most in their reflections, is the power of that peer observation time. Both the teachers who are mentoring as well as the new teachers that are coming into the district. So it is something that's really valued, but it is hard to sometimes figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah, I had 2 comments about things that I heard that I thought were really wonderful. I'm really pleased with this whole experience and what you're bringing to the schools. And Lisa, when you talked about recruiting students to be involved with this, I really appreciated the effort you meant to sort of recognize the diversity in the culture and to try to draw from that. Because I think that it gives people an opportunity to work with people that they might not otherwise be doing some work with or a project with. It sort of breaks down that silo of only certain people do that student government thing, only certain people do that club thing. And it's very, very encouraging to me. And then the other thing that I really enjoyed hearing about, and I think is very useful to the district, is sort of providing a common baseline experience for all the teachers. All the teachers get to do a shadow experience. And then you've suddenly got this common experience across all of your staff that they can have a dialogue with, they can learn from, they can examine with somebody else. And I think that's really helpful. That's a very good approach. So I'm really pleased with this. Looks like it was pretty exciting for your staff.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
fun.
it's cool.
Yeah.
I want to come.
Yeah.
Yep, come. We can set that up.
Do you find the relevance piece is just a big part of it right now for both the NOC and the high school, as far as going into classrooms and having kids
Say that they want school to be relevant.
Yeah, just what you're doing and how what the classrooms look like and what they're learning is relevant to them.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a big piece.
I've had a chance to go into a lot of different districts lately in classrooms, and I just feel like that's just a theme I'm seeing at each place I go.
Which is always like, when the whole idea of real world learning came out, I was always the person who was like, but school's real, like that's our real world.
Mm-hmm.
So the conversation I like to have with students a lot is just, what makes something relevant to you? I think often that's the teacher having to show a student, why is this relevant? Why is Romeo and Juliet relevant to me in this time, in this place? How can I take meaning from it? Why is it important to me? So that we can preserve the notion that everything that we're doing is in school, not necessarily just for preparation for some work in the future, but in preparation for a scholarly approach to a democracy. So I just think that's a wonderful conversation, and what I like about the Shadow Day and pulling together teachers with sort of a partnership with a student who they hadn't necessarily known, wasn't even in their grade level, I think that will be the kind of conversations that we can open up a little bit, and we can start digging a little bit deeper in terms of it being relevant.
And actually, what's exciting is April 10th. So some of the work we've been doing with our advisory program is each grade level really having a focus. And in 10th grade, where it focused on interest and connection to possible careers. So in working with, I think the group that, the EDC. So we've been working with them, and they've been helping us to create the career fair. We have a keynote speaker who'll be coming in, Matt Matola, who graduated in 2011. And his message to the kids, having gone through Newburyport public schools, but then seeing what the world is about, because he works at Microsoft now, his message to the kids is learn to love learning and learn to love solving problems, because he sees that as two of the biggest skill sets that you need to be equipped leaving high school with.
And that's one of the problems with the relevance movement, is that, you know, we as a people are becoming so narcissistic. You know, I only listen to music that I pull up on my playlist. My DVR has plenty of things that I'm going to choose, so nothing happens to me. Getting exposed to things outside of my interest zone is rarer than it used to be. And so convincing kids that just becoming an interested and interesting person, which is a very valid goal, is becoming tougher and tougher to do. And they're expecting to have, you know, their choice in everything, and to have this immediacy of usefulness too. Like, I want to take this, I want to be tactically use it tomorrow, otherwise it's not even on my radar. It's a difficult mindset to overcome, and an important one, I think.
I'd like to sort of offer an observation on that, at least with regards to Newburyport High School. I think you're seeing the teachers modeling that breadth of interest and the importance of that breadth of interest. And you see it by the number of teachers that show up at athletic events that aren't necessarily involved in physical education. You see it with other teachers showing up for drama presentations and whatnot. And I also have seen it with the way teachers are approaching students to get them involved in things that they otherwise might not be involved in. Whether it's recruiting a jock to be part of a drama production, or whether it's having people who are otherwise shy use technology to overcome that shyness and become more vocal within the school community. So I think there are lots of instances where that's happening, and it's to me it's perceivable, and I applaud you for that. And I would hope it's something that continues. And yeah, kids will, in this day and age, kids will tend to go narrower and narrower, as you're saying. I bemoan the fact that so many kids are thinking of career paths and specialization in their junior years. You know, what kind of school do I want to go to? Well, I want to go to a business school or an engineering school, or, you know, the whole concept of liberal arts and getting a broad education is not as popular as it once was. It's costly, I know. I know. But the point being is that anything we can do to combat that and make sure that our students become well-rounded is effort well spent.
Andy, I just want to be sure I heard you right. You were talking about working with the EBC with 10th graders
Correct.
in terms of that?
For
piece?
the Career Expo.
For the Career Expo. So I was sort of thinking about this last night on 60 Minutes. They were talking about coding, and a high-level person from Microsoft was saying how it's really a significant problem in terms of getting kids interested in STEM, and they're starting to see, I thought the female interest in STEM was growing, but they were saying it's going in the other direction. And that, I don't know, do we do work at the middle school regarding
Coding.
or careers, or You know, I mean, just trying to give broader exposure to, they worry that even junior year is late.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't really have a career introduction kind of program like that, 10th grade. There used to be a lunch program, not so much. Right now, I'd say that the speakers who are coming in are part of our 8th grade civic series. So we do have at least once a month people coming in, but they're talking more about how their identity has taken them in a direction of civic action in some particular way or another.
And you haven't invited the mayor?
I know, why haven't we?
I don't know.
Shocking. We'll get
I think
on
we've all
this.
been here.
There are limited opportunities to be made.
You've all been there except me?
Yeah, we were all invited except
Oh,
you.
all right. Where's that budget? No.
So, but yeah, I think that's, certainly an important area for us to think about. The other thing we've been thinking about is just transitioning from 8th to 9th grade for students that are leaving, having had a couple of years of at least some time in an engineering class. They're often not taking any engineering classes at the high school, and fewer young women taking engineering classes at the high school. So we've had some conversations about how to make a better sales for that transition in terms of kids signing up for the robotics electives or the sail bot and some of those courses.
Thank you.
And if I can just add to that too, Donna, we're starting coding at the Bresnahan now. So it is very different than what it was before. Our kindergarten students are coding.
And there's a
little
free Microsoft
Bebots.
curriculum.
There is.
Is that what you're using?
Pardon me?
Is that what you're using at Bresnahan?
We
It is
use,
code.org, right?
right, we use several different things. They do some coding on the computer, they do some coding with small robots. They're getting little more robots that are in the next step of sophistication for their coding because they've kind of outgrown the introductory ones that they have. They do the Hour of Code at Bresnahan, they do the Hour of Code at the Mullen School. Our students are all taking robotics in 8th grade. So, there are things as we've built the STEM programming to make it more robust and to open that up. But I agree, I was just in an AP physics class during our learning walks and saw a huge discrepancy in the female and male population in that class. But, when I talked to the teacher, he said that was kind of an anomaly this year. It's been really balanced over the last several years. So, I think we're aware of it and we're working at it because we really do want to see females that are interested in a STEM path be encouraged and have opportunities to learn more about it.
Nice presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. It's really encouraging, and I think the subtext of the message here today is that the high school and the middle school are having conversations, lots of conversations about lots of different subjects. We've heard tonight, we've heard about engineering, we've heard about world languages, and that's very encouraging. And I know it's sort of a perfect storm with changing administrations and new people coming in, and these conversations are just wonderful to know that they're going on.
Right, and that successful skills-based learning that Billy brought in, and if it's going to be successful, you need student voice, teacher voice, collaboration throughout that. And I'm already seeing faculty members collaborating on rubrics and looking at assessments. And I just want to credit the faculty and support staff here, the willingness to try new things and to really it's just been amazing. And the last, I would say, 2 months, just as a district, it's just so promising, and I get really excited on what we're going to accomplish together. So, and I appreciate their leadership.
I mean, this willingness to sort of step outside and take a look at things. A very quick anecdote for me. One of the most significant things that happened in my junior high school career was a music teacher who had to fight with his district manager. I mean, the whole idea of presenting to my class an album of classical music that was done on the Moog synthesizer. And I liked classical music. I heard this album, and he had to fight to they said it's not relevant, it's not, and when I heard Bach played on a Moog synthesizer, I said, wow, math can be really beautiful, was the first thing that I learned. The second thing that I learned was, this is 350, 400-year-old music, and it sounds like very modern to me. It just opened my mind, like in a way that Shakespeare opened my mind to what's going on in the world. And you just never know what's going to do that. But that's a lesson that I've carried with me all of my life in terms of how I look at things, what kind of music I appreciate, what kind of risks I'm willing to take. Because this teacher, who's long retired, fought with the supervisor in his department to play that record for us, so that we could hear something that I wouldn't have heard any other way, So it made a huge difference and continues to give to me. So this work is really important work.
Thank you.
So Sean, we have the shorter part of the meeting coming up now, the
Yes.
discussion about the calendar.
Great job.
So the next item on the agenda is a possible vote on the 2019-2020 school calendar, which has been a permanent item on our agenda for the last 8 months, I think. So dare I turn this over to you, Sean?
Sure.
All right.
Well, first of all, I think through the development of the school calendar, we've had a lot of, I think, input, not only from the school committee, but also from a lot of our community members. So I think we've kind of revised, listening to input, listening to all the stakeholders. For this year, I think we've revised the calendar, I think, to the point where we're feeling pretty comfortable, where we heard, I think, a lot of different people. Just going through my notes here. And I think we had that version 5 that we tweaked one more time. I think one of the big pieces was if we were going to stop before post-Labor Day start, looking at the summer, and that's why we came up with a memorandum of agreement with the ASME union, because Good Friday was a typical day off for the district. So we kind of moved that holiday for the winter break, which gained us a day for the post-Labor Day start. We also listened to, I think, both sides, families in the sense of spending a little extra time with family over the Labor Day break, and then also taking in consideration youth camps, which we know start in the summer. So I think that was a big piece. The other piece is, coming into the district, Thursdays, the PD days were Thursdays for approximately 10 years, and then there was a shift to the Fridays. So we really took a look at Thursdays and Fridays, and then kind of looked at that data, and our recommendation was not to move the Fridays, the one recommendation, and just looking at absences over the years, is just not have them before a vacation or a long weekend. So we kind of had that discussion. We shared that together because of the absenteeism. And as you know, chronic absenteeism and absenteeism is an area of accountability. And we even, at a North Shore Roundtable, the commissioner was there, and he was talking a lot about these issues, and I kind of just followed him out the door because I had to ask, what's going to happen with the absenteeism. And before he became commissioner, this was one area that the state is going to focus on. And he's a former superintendent, and of all the areas that the state picked, obviously he wasn't happy with the absenteeism, but that's kind of what they're focusing on, and he's been receiving a lot of input from a lot of superintendents. So that's kind of why when we're looking at absenteeism on the Fridays, especially before the vacations, long weekend. It's concerning. The other piece that we also have been working with is late start parents and listening to some of, their concerns and trying to bring people back together regarding late start. So in this last version, version 5.5.
I'll repeat what you just said, the last version.
I'm hoping. Well, you have a lot of options as a school committee, but the last one is, we had this idea from looking at the early release and our students getting out early. When you look at Andy Egmont and youth services, they got to rearrange some of the coverage after school. I know that there's been scenarios where some of our high school, middle school students downtown area. So our idea was to take two of those early release days and move them to a late start. And the idea was have one each semester. So from there, we can gather input from the faculty and parents and families on how did that work with the late start for the family side, and then do our PD before the students arrive. So, we really pilot those two scenarios and gather some feedback, and then really, I think we'll have more time. I'll be in the district for a full year, and then we can kind of regroup, I think, as a community, and then also with the union and the teachers to see how to best to move forward. So that's kind of the history. I think, overall, I think we've done a great job, school committee, along with school administration, and listening to a lot of feedback from the community, and really coming up with, I think, which is really the best compromise going into next year. So that's what I have to say.
So to start the conversation, do you have a recommendation for which calendar you?
I would, this latest version with this late start times, which we'll be able to gather feedback, I think, from the community, I think is a version I would recommend. Keep them, once again, you have the version in front of you, on Fridays for the early release, but just don't have them as part of the long weekends or vacation. And then the other piece, just so you know, is taking that, we had 2 full days, one semester, one the second semester. So we're recommended, I think it's January 10th, which is the Friday of the Martin Luther King, to have a full day PD. And then listening to a lot of my focus groups and as part of my entry plan findings, really concentrating on transitions. So we moved that November PD day, that full day, to the front of the calendar. So where we'll really focus on, transitions for the students coming in, student-led orientation for all of those kids.
Sean, just to be clear, when you say you moved it to the front of the calendar, you moved it to before all of the students have
Correct.
their first day.
Correct.
So some of the students will
Correct.
will attend that day, but not all of
Yes.
the students, and the focus will be on transition.
Correct.
And that moves the PD day out of the sort of annual calendar.
Correct. So
Okay.
the
School
November
calendar.
election day would be a half a day instead of the full day PD. And then the full day PD will be, teachers are back for a full day for their, orientation and signing off on a lot of the forms. But that second day, we're looking to do student-led orientation for the transition. So 8th graders coming to 9th grade, 3rd graders going to 4th grade, and 5th grade going to 6th grade. And then what that will look like is really working with the principals and the leadership team. The idea is to have those students in those grades with kind of like a orientation and abbreviated day before all of the students come back.
So we missed it now, right? Transitional things between sections. Kids go
Something
for
that
a.
happens in the spring.
There is
Yeah.
some shadow day and orientation. But my recommendation, and this would be voluntary for, you wouldn't mandate, but I'm sure. from
Oh, okay,
talk-
all right, so
talking
some
to the-
families choose to send their kid and
Correct.
they don't have to go.
But what I'm looking at is, even working with Lee in transportation, so we would run like an abbreviated day. So if you're a 8th grader and you're gonna be a freshman, you'd come to school in the morning, and then the upperclassmen would run a student-led orientation, where you would go through your schedule, how to open your locker, you get to meet some of the teachers, and it just really, I think, gives those grades and those students, they have really like the school to themselves before everyone else comes back. And we felt, in my past experience, that was very, very helpful for those big transitions. The other piece too, in working with the principals, this is a great opportunity for the PTOs, to really work on this day too, providing possibly, there's all different activities, but sometimes there's like a little cookout at the end of the day to really celebrate this class, welcome them into the school. So I think it lends us to be very creative in really supporting those students on those transitions, 8th grade to 9th, 5th to 6th, 3rd to 4th.
I mean, I think the thing that, we're open for conversation now.
Sure.
And I would say that the thing that appeals to me about that is that I think that transition days in the spring are great, but if kids of today are anything like I was, come that first day of school, I'm still terrified and I don't remember a damn thing about what I did in the spring.
Yeah.
What room is where, how do I move through the classroom? So I really, I think that is a really good, constructive thing to be doing.
The Mullen started a summer barbecue a couple of years ago. I think this would be, it's gone for 2 years now, maybe 3 even.
Right.
And it was really, really successful, more so with 4th graders than 5th graders.
Right.
But
What the
all
other
the
piece,
teachers there, and Tara has always said that, has said that she really thinks it's great. So I don't know if you want to move that, but as an example for other
Right.
schools.
What I really liked about the orientation of the first day is it's the students that are riding the bus too. So, they get to get their stop, meet the bus driver. It's on a small scale, but then with a lot of the work that we're doing with student leadership and allowing our students to be part of this process, you really, now the upperclassmen are more like mentors for the freshmen. And then your 8th graders are now mentors and leaders for the 6th graders. And some of them, talking with Tara, would also help with that transition for the 4th grade. Because remember, your 8th graders are also in the building with 4th graders. So I just think, it gives us an opportunity to be extremely creative, but more important, very supportive of those transition times. And then on the flip side, in the morning, then it allows our staff, after they do a lot of the mandated trainings on that first day, they can really concentrate on their class list and really get to know the students and really find time that day to really prep for the students that will be coming in fully the next day. So, and I think it's worth trying and, regroup, but from talking to the principals, they felt it was a great idea, so.
We used to do
And the
that
staff
stuff.
did
When
too.
did the high school stop doing that? Like having that? We used to do that.
They,
Freshmen used to have the
they still
whole
do
thing.
have a freshman orientation
okay.
day. This would be different.
Really different. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question that I should have noticed before. So the Christmas break, the winter break is.
Can I ask a question about this before we go to someone else?
Yeah.
Because I guess my only thought about it in general is that we heard from some families that are obviously in favor of Labor Day,
Mhm.
post-Labor Day, and some that were stressed out about post-Labor Day. We've now not only pushed it back to after Labor Day, but we've also had pushed another 2 days back. So it's not only we're not starting the Tuesday after Labor Day, we're now starting, in most kids' cases, the Thursday after Labor Day.
Mhm.
So almost a full week and a half later than we started this year.
Mhm.
So it just seems like, and I know we voted to start after Labor Day, which I get,
Right.
but now we're like,
Well, it's really, you're still looking at all those days anyway, so you would, that full day PD was on election day, that full day. So that's what
I'm just saying, like,
right.
with particular with those weeks between when, when the people came talking about
Sure.
when camps end and school starts, we're now going a full week and a half after we started this week.
Right.
Which was one of the concerns from a lot of parents.
But in the way we've been doing it in the past, I think, Dave, every 7 years, there's this anomalous start.
Right.
And I think that was last time. We now, either way, we're headed into a period where we weren't gonna have that spread until the calendar rolls around to where it was last year.
I just thought I'd point that out.
No, I agree. And I think like.
And we're back to, because the other criticism was people were unhappy with, and this will bring up a second point, with only having 2 days of school and then another weekend and then like that's slow start, we'll call it.
Mhm.
So we're going back, because that's another thing we tried to mitigate last year by having 3 days before the Labor Day started. Now we're going back to the 2 days and then a weekend. So it just seems like we're reversing a lot of things that we kind of talked a lot about being good ideas.
Right.
I also noticed something, and I don't know whose oversight it was, I definitely know I didn't ask about it, but we never found out, at least I don't remember hearing what the teachers thought about pre or post Labor Day, or the soft start versus the not soft start. It just seemed like
Yeah.
a miss in our conversation.
Right, they typically send out a survey, but they did not send out a survey this year, because once we go back, the other piece too is, when you go back to the contract language within, there's that paragraph regarding when the early start and then starting after Labor Day. The idea of the orientation, having that full PD the second day, so teachers are back, do all their mandated training, giving them that opportunity to really look at their class list and to having that extra day of prep in the sense of getting ready for the entire population coming in. They were, the people and the membership that we work with, the executive board, was very interested in that, thought that was a pretty good thing to try. And this is, as I said, this is, I think, gathering a lot of input and trying to come up with, I think, the best scenario and the best compromise. But, after we try this calendar, we'll have different opportunities to, as we go into next year. We'll have more input, I think, from the people, within our community. This may be extremely successful with the transition, or, we could go back and say, well, this was a great idea, but we might be able to tweak here and there going into next year.
Labor Day's on the 7th next year.
Can we
That's
just
all
get
we
through
can
this? Can we just get
It might
through
be a
this
good
year?
idea, after we get through this calendar, talk about maybe having some of that language already in place, so we don't have to go through this next year.
Correct.
Because I think half the people got what they wanted this year, but I think half the city didn't get what they
Yeah,
wanted.
and you know what?
That'll always
Well,
be
it's
the
gonna have
case.
to be that way. You can't ever,
Right.
right? That's why if we do the one that if it falls on 2, 3, or
Certain day.
4, and
Correct.
10 years in a row that's how it's gonna work, then
Right. And going back to the history of the community, that's kind of how I think everyone's come either before Labor Day or after Labor Day, is kind of where those dates fall. If it's that Labor Day's falling on a later time in September, then typically the district's gone before. If it's really early Labor Day, typically the district's gone after. So.
But I think if there was a policy, or if it was tied directly to, not just to the teacher contract, then I think it would eliminate a lot of the discussion each year about.
oh, like a solid thing. This
like
is
a
how
solid
the
thing. This is
district
what it is.
operates all the time.
This is how
Yeah, we
it
can
is.
certainly look at that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't wanna
I mean,
So then,
bog down on
you know,
that
that-
discussion, but
correct.
I think that would cut out a lot of stuff next year.
Yeah, and I think that,
It would shorten these meetings.
I know I'm not helping this process right now, but it's something I've been thinking about.
No, I agree.
I mean, I got to talk to a lot of people, and I thought it was a pretty even split between
Right.
teachers and
I
I thought it was
agree.
between the community.
I agree.
Whether you start before or after, so.
Well, I think
Like I
like,
said, I'm
yeah.
kind of with David and I talked about this, but I think, school time at the beginning of the year is much more valuable than some of the things that go on at the end of the year, so. I just think it's worth talking about.
I agree, and I just typically, in my experience, working on school calendars for forever, or being part of it for a long time, not in this role, usually the younger families, because you're out vacationing and that, typically like to extend the Labor Day, but when our children get up to the high school level, they're usually involved in different activities.
Sure.
And a lot of the sports or band or marching band start late August. So they're already here, they're already back in school, so. But I just think for us as a community, we will talk through these and develop the best calendar each year. But as you said, if we have some dates that are specific, then we know where we're gonna start either before or after Labor Day. It makes sense.
I have just a question before I give my very short opinion on all these. Is the winter break contractual that the teachers have to be out from before Christmas all the way through New Year's Day? Or is that just the way the calendar falls? Or is that no matter what, they're out?
Yeah, I think it's very specific.
Because I'm just because this year, or next year rather, because of the way it falls, there's 8 days of vacation and then 2 days of school when they come back on the 2nd of January. So my prediction is that all those families that ditch on those Friday half days, they're not coming to school that week. Those kids are going to be out on that Christmas because you're going to get the full 2-week break.
I'm sending my kids on Tuesday that way, but get out of the house.
So we know.
Wait a second, you're gonna leave Tuesday ahead of them.
So I know we're not going to do this, but I was wondering if it weren't contractual, then you could have us come back the Monday after Christmas for 2 days, have the Wednesday as an actual holiday, and then the 2 days, the Thursday, Friday, and then you would get 2 days in June back. But if they have to have that off, then that's part of the contract.
Yeah,
right?
my response, as having sat through 5 contract negotiations,
Yeah.
the idea of having to negotiate that every single contract
Right.
Yeah.
is just, oh my God. If I had hair, I'd be pulling it out. I mean, it's just, it's you gotta sort of, I think you gotta sort of say, okay, this is, what are the values that we need to address?
Yeah.
And the thing about this calendar is that it's addressing some new values. It addresses the value about transition. It gives us a little bit of an opportunity to see what Late Start does. It addresses some of the issues of kids being downtown on Friday afternoon if they're not clearing out of town the afternoons. That, I came in,
They shouldn't have summer then if they're not going to be allowed downtown. I mean,
I understand that, but it's still, we live in a community, and there are some kids that blow it for other kids. I mean, that's just the way it is. So we need to be responsive to that.
I mean, it's.
We had 2 students set off the alarms in the library today.
I'm sure kids do bad things, I mean.
Some do, right.
But that was my whole thing about the Friday half days. Just because an extra 12 to 15 people take advantage of it, you don't have to punish everybody about it. But
Right.
it's fine. But it's fine.
But there's also, we don't sit down here and say, okay, how can we punish everybody? Because what
I understand
works
that.
for, what works
I know
for the
what I'm saying
greater-
is that's how it runs. But my opinion is this: I like this version 6. I told Sean when I saw him with the Hello Spring thing that a whole bunch of parents love the idea of the PD in the morning, so a late start, especially people with older kids who want later start times anyway. So, I mean, it's only 2 days of the year, but it's a good experiment. My belief of the Friday half day was misinterpreted at one point, that I want to give parents a 3-day weekend, which is not true, because I don't think they should ditch. They should go that half day. I don't think moving it away from Mondays or vacation weeks is going to change anything. Those same people who are taking advantage are going to still ditch. That's my personal opinion. But I don't like when you come to a place and you say, hey, I have an idea, and they say, no, we tried that, or that may work there, but it won't ever work here. So having said that, I'm gonna let Sean have his experiment for the off weeks, because I think he deserves it as the new guy. You know, new ideas, come in and see what happens. So I like number 6.
Well said.
That's my short answer.
Yeah, I'd like to just comment on the fact that of all of the calendars that I have seen, and I've seen many, not just this year, but many this year, but many other years as well.
More many this year.
More many this year, exactly. One of the things that I find refreshing about this calendar is, as far as it is possible to do so, this is probably one of the most student-centric calendars. And for that reason, I wholeheartedly would support version 6.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I mean,
I wish we could do more of the morning release.
yeah, I do too. I think it's a great idea.
I think will be very, very well received, and I would really like to see a couple more of them put in there. I think it's a great idea.
I guess I'm still trying to figure out the goal, because the reality is we don't need any more research on the benefits of later start. We all know that they work. Not only that, but we're not talking about just a later start, we're talking about a way later start, so it's not usable data.
Yeah.
You know, for me personally, it won't really matter, but I think you're gonna get a 50-50 split, because I think it's gonna be a lot harder for parents to go in late on a Friday morning than it is to go home after lunch, like professionally speaking. Like, so you're gonna have parents with little kids who are gonna need babysitters and stuff like that a lot longer. So depending on what the goal is, I don't buy the gotta keep kids out of downtown goal. I think that's,
It's not a goal, it's just
Okay.
one concern,
okay, well,
for a small group of kids.
yep,
And we bring this
So
school
it-
resource officer down,
right,
to be downtown, and it's made a big difference.
okay,
Right.
that's good. So that's what I'm saying, I don't really know what the goal is of doing that then, but it doesn't really, I don't think it matters all that much personally, so I'm not upset with that. I mean, I think if we want to try an experiment with the later starts, we've been trying to talk about, for example, midterms and finals week at the high school ever since I've been on the committee, we've been talking about that. It's always been an impossible thing to do. I don't understand that, but
Did we do that this year? No?
no, we did not.
Why not? I thought
I
we were
was,
going to.
we were,
Where Mr. Wolf with his faculty and students, they're looking at midterms. They had a discussion and a vote, and they're looking at revising the final exams.
Starting the finals, not
Correct.
starting for midterms. It just was.
It wanted teacher and student input on.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't like the idea of a midterms week in general, which I really hope at some point we could talk about that, and what the purpose of that is, but if we're gonna have it, we always thought that would be a nice way to experiment, but we've never, because that would maybe be a truer experiment, but,
I guess,
but I also think, and I said this in my email, one of the biggest issues I have with early release days is the loss of momentum. And the reason why we moved those Fridays up against the long weekends and vacations was to try to keep as much time intact as possible, as few weeks interrupted as possible. And I still believe in that as a valuable thing. So I don't like the idea of separating them again. If we are gonna separate them again, I think I put together a whole host of questions that might help me understand that we're really, I think, shooting at the right target. Because I don't think that the half-days, the people who ditch on half-days are the reasons for our chronic absenteeism. And I might be wrong on that, but I just, that's the anecdotal piece. For the same reason, I think families are more likely to ditch at the end of June than they are at the end of August. So I think we're gonna run into chronic absenteeism or absenteeism rates in those last days of June if we end up going to school till the 25th or 26th. that's gonna be a problem.
I also
So-
think that, I don't know if we notified parents about this new criteria in terms of absenteeism.
But
Um,
I'm saying is 18 days we're talking about, and I don't think parents who blow off, like, even if a kid missed every early release day, that means they still need 9 more days in the year. And and one of the questions, thoughts I had is, are those really the kids we're talking about? In my experience, chronically absent kids are not the ones going on ski vacations or leaving early for April break to go to the Bahamas or whatever that we were talking about last week. They're kids with like significant issues and a problem with schooling and problems with home life that we have to sort of, so if there was some evidence that we're shooting at the right target, I would feel better about the experiment.
Well, I think that there's a couple pieces. I think the chronic absenteeism in your subgroups is one aspect of the attendance. The other piece is overall attendance, which is another aspect of the accountability. So taking a look at daily attendance throughout the school year. So when you have days of a lot of students absent, and once again, this has not been well defined by the state and the DESC.
Right.
They have it there, they have it as a measure across all, throughout the Commonwealth, but they're still trying to fine tune, what it's gonna look like. So even when you're looking at students, was pulling some data, just the last February vacation was 305 students were absent on 2/15. When you calculate that into our data, that's around 87% attendance rate district-wide. Now remember, anything 95 or less is like a red flag. So that's my concern when we know, and when we looked at Thursday, and then we moved them to Friday, not against a long weekend or a vacation, although it increased, it wasn't as significant as what, kind of what we're seeing now. And so when you start looking at daily attendance, that the state's monitoring and looking at, we don't know what the state is looking at. All I know is when you look at Thursdays, Fridays, and then Fridays before the vacations and long weekends, you can see the jump in daily attendance rates.
What was the worst grade for this February break?
What's that?
Which grade didn't show up the most?
I don't have that in front of me, but
It was the senior class last year.
yeah.
It was like 100 of the 300 were seniors.
Yeah.
And
I know,
fully
I'll give you an example that, just looking at the upper grades, so I was just looking at, I might even have it. I was looking at the data today. But just the upper grades at the high school level, we had 90, it's my chicken scratch here somewhere. On Columbus weekend, you can just see the difference if I have it in here. Columbus weekend, we had 64 high school students absent. The February vacation, we had, I think it was 112 students absent. And the Martin Luther King weekend, where the students had final exams on that Friday. So we had 169 students throughout the district that were absent, but at the high school, because they had final exams, 13, and the whole high school was absent. So,
exams every Friday?
yeah, just have exams every
Well, I guess
Friday.
doesn't that go? That
Right.
was one of the things we said, which no one's trying to be offensive, but
Right.
the kids or the families don't believe necessarily that there's a whole lot going on that half day on a Friday unless there's an exam.
Right.
So why bother going to school? I think, and
Well,
and I don't want we can talk
right.
about this forever, but
I know.
the same people that take advantage are gonna do it off of a holiday week. They're still gonna. I mean, it is what it is, and I don't know if we can ever change that, no matter what DESI says, because those people I don't think they particularly care what the state is telling them, right? I don't know if they will, but.
And it's what was the question, like in districts where I've been, where we're talking about attendance policies, meaning that kids don't get credit if they don't come to enough classes, that kind of thing. You know, my question to the teachers has always been, how could a kid miss this many days and still be doing well in your class? So I guess that was leading up to the question about the correlation we have between absenteeism and GPAs. Like, is there a connection where you say, listen, if you're missing 10 to 15 days this year, I'm going to show you that you're not going to be doing well in this class.
You know, it seems to me that the issue of absenteeism is worth a more in-depth conversation. The only way to resolve it is not the calendar. The calendar is one strategy, but there may be other strategies. There may, you know, that we can develop and talk about.
I'm only bringing it up now because we changed to the way we do things for very particular reasons. And if we want to change away from that, that's all I'm saying is I would feel better about doing so if I knew that we had the right goal in mind.
Mhm.
And if it was a move towards a goal that we were going for. That's all.
Well, I think we've said this is a much more student-centered calendar than
I don't know what that means, though.
Means it's more,
consistent, you know, in terms of.
the idea of building in the transition day.
Okay, so the one day is student-friendly, I get that.
But that makes it one day more friendly, ergo a more student-centered.
And moving early release away from holidays.
How is that student-friendly? I'm personally saying it's not
Because
student-friendly.
it's more,
Because,
it's more consistent.
no, we're breaking up more weeks. We're actually decreasing consistency. Killing momentum. That's why we put the Fridays there. Is to keep momentum. So I don't want to make a big deal of this, but the question, you know, why we're doing it, I don't know that. That's all. I just don't know that we're.
Well, I'd like to vote. I think we'd be around.
Oh, we need to
You're tired of talking about the calendar already?
Actually, we need to move in second.
We have a move, second, further discussion.
No, we
The
don't.
motion,
We haven't, that's what I'm saying, we have
that's it,
to.
okay, that's it. The motion is to adopt the calendar as recommended by the superintendent.
Draft 6.
Draft 6, okay.
So moved. It's moved.
Second.
Who motioned? Okay, thank you, I'm sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes.
One opposition, rest in favor. 6-1 passes. We have a new calendar.
All right. Thank you.
Really, it's going to punch such a hole in our agenda next week. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Assistant Superintendent's Report.
Yes. Sean,
Yes.
thank you. All right, I'm going to give you a couple of updates that connect very much to the conversation that Lisa and Andy had, and hopefully help you see the student focus that we have going in a lot of the work that we're doing. So I first want to give you an update about the skilled space teaching and learning work that we're doing with Billy Donegan, and just let you know what the next phase of the work is for her and her team, and that's to provide some interim support for the teachers who were in cohort 1. So that was the 3-day training we did between January and February, and we don't want them to lose momentum and not have the support that they need to continue to grow. Because as we've talked about before, is we're trying to build momentum from within and help teachers show other teachers the benefit of using these methods. So as you can see on the handout I gave you, we have 2 women that worked with Billy that are both retired teachers from Beverly, and they were really terrific. They worked side by side with her during the 3-day workshops for cohort 1. And because they're local, they're going to do some in-person support for our teachers. On the next 3 release days, they'll be working with them for the half day, as well as do some learning walks in those teachers' classrooms, have time to debrief with them and talk with them as they're implementing the units that they developed during the workshop, to support them as they move through this process of implementation. And you can see their schedule that I've bulleted there for those days. Also, Stephanie and Jane will be here in person, but Billy is available for our teachers, through Google Hangout at any time through this process. I also wanted to highlight the work that we're doing in world language, which also follows the same practices that you heard Lisa and Andy talk about in CSSR, that we've been talking about with skills-based education with Billy Donegan, and now the work that we're doing in world language. So we've contracted with Dr. Nicole, whoops, I've misspelled her name there, I'm sorry, it's Scherf, and she's from Salem State. She's helping us build world language programming that's aligned to the latest research around the 6 core practices in world language. I've bulleted those practices for you so that you can see what each of them focus on. But she started this work with our teachers in January. She's working with teachers, all of our world language teachers, 6 through 12. And she started by doing some learning walks in all of our world language teachers' classrooms so that she could observe what our current practices are. And then after she had that opportunity, she sent our teachers a survey about their practices, about how their practices compare to these 6 core practices that she's focusing on, and then conducted on our February release day a full 6-hour methods boot camp for our world language teachers, 6 through 12. I gave you a little idea of what this workshop in the abstract has done as she's done this kind of work in other districts. We learned about Dr. Scherf through Salem Public Schools. Andy had been familiar with her in doing some work there. I called the assistant superintendent there. We had a conversation, and she really talked about how the work had been transformative in their world language practices. So we brought her in and we had a conversation and decided to start working with her. So she will be working with our world language teachers on the next our final 4 release days in the year, and to continue the support that she'll be offering this year. And I've outlined in these bulleted items here what she'll be focusing on during that time. So she's going to start by, creating a mission and vision for our world language department in Newburyport. And she'll do some individual goal setting and provide some observation time and feedback for our teachers. They'll be mapping a curriculum for 6 through 12, and they're going to start the development of their backward design units with rubrics that are very much skill-based, as you can see in those core elements.
So this is not just sort of a updating conceptually what we're doing. There's real nuts and bolts happening here about what we need to look at, what we need to do, and ultimately what we'll need to put resources to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We had a session with Dr. Scherf on last Friday, Lisa Furlong, Andy Wolf, and myself, and she gave us a very thorough report of the work that she's done so far with very detailed recommendations in moving the district forward. So we're really excited about the work with her.
She's been good long overdue.
Yeah, it's really.
Languages, we've been limping along with a really, weak system and trying to cobble it together for many years.
It's very true. One of the other things that we've been talking about with her that connects even beyond world language is the Seal of Biliteracy, which is very exciting, and it's being offered by the state. And that, the Seal of Biliteracy, she will help us put the programmatic components in place that would allow us to apply to the state to offer that to our school, to our students.
Say that again?
She would help us put the program components
For?
in place for the Seal of Biliteracy.
Seal of Biliteracy, thanks, that's what I.
You couldn't hear, I'm sorry.
Opposed to
Yep,
walrus.
yeah, I know what that
Yes, a Seal of Biliteracy. And it would be available to any of our students who are biliterate. So for our English-speaking students that are taking a world language and pass the competencies to show that their biliteracy there, or for our Ls that are competent in their native language and become competent in English, can also receive the Seal of Biliteracy. So,
That's
yeah.
really great.
Okay. And then we just continue our learning walks. We're back on schedule with those. We had a little blip in those with the vacations and whatnot. But they continue to help us build common practices among the administrators, have really good conversations about the observations we've seen, and it really helps us support the teaching and learning that's going on. And then I'm really excited to talk about the progress of the mindfulness wellness space at the Knock Mullen building. And, with the support of the NEF, the progress is moving right along. During February vacation, they did the demolition work, some of the electrical work, putting in new doors, and addressing the various heating needs in those spaces. And it's amazing when you walk in that space to see how different it is just in a couple of weeks. It's located behind the girls' locker rooms. So it used to be. Yes, there's a small weight room in there, and there's another room off of it that was used for storage. That all used to be part of the locker room, and then it got reduced in size. And so they've taken down some walls to open it up. They've opened up the light from the door that's in there, which makes an amazing difference in the space. And it's moving right along. We're hoping to have that completed by the end of April. And there's going to be a grand opening for it scheduled in May 24th, so mark your calendars for that. I think that will be really exciting. The Newburyport Education Foundation did a plankathon as one of the fundraisers for this. That was wildly successful. They raised over $30,000
Was it awesome?
in that plankathon event, which was really great.
Sean had 17 minutes, right?
You'll probably be asked to do this again at the opening to
Right.
You're gonna need that, though.
show your progress and see if you can
I'm
beat
looking
your.
for the NEF pie eating contest. Dave and I, that's our.
Good idea.
It's a planking.
This exercise.
We were talking tug of war, though. That's really what.
There we go.
I got a rope. I got a rope.
There you go.
Ready to go?
It's great.
Mud in the middle.
I did. I also did want to say,
With a walrus in it.
There's also a squirrel of literacy.
I do just want to give a shout out to the NEF. They have also secured a really generous donor for this project. We're going to kind of keep under wraps until the grand opening, and the donor will be there and honored on that day.
Oh, yes,
All right.
sorry.
Superintendent's report, just a couple items, and prior to our next school committee meeting, I'll be able to provide a lot more update, but I wanted to mention the work with the Home for Little Wanderers. I know we've talked about this in the beginning in the fall, but we're moving forward. We had a meeting last week. We're looking to bring the Home for Little Wanderers in at the middle school. We're going to pilot And they're gonna have an adjustment counselor within the school system. And the idea is to bridge the gap from our counseling and working with our students, and they'll be able to provide ongoing support, family support outside of school. I think it's going to be a great partnership. It ties in to the work of the Bridge program and the presentations that you all heard at the budget forum, and we're really excited. So we'll have some more detail on that, but we're going to have that up and running by the end of this month. So we're looking to expand on that. The other piece is that I had a great opportunity. It was Read Across America month. I had the opportunity to go to Robin O'Malley's kindergarten class, and also that same day to Susan Westgate's class. And Officer Tierney, I read Officer Buckle, which was one of my favorite novels for kindergarten. It was just a great little story on safety, and we had a lot of fun with the students. And I'm not sure if we've recognized the Interact Club here at school committee, but the Interact Club, with all of their community service, they will recognize that Rotary. And then we had the idea on 2/12/19, where the Interact Club and Jill Moran, along with senior help Logan Lattimay, had the Rotary Club luncheon at the high school. And from there, with all the Rotarians and the local business leaders, they got to tour the high school and look at a lot of the classes and some of the upgrades in STEM that are going on there. So it was a great community event. And I thank them, the students, Ms. Moran, and also Andy and his administrative team for having that. It was an awesome community event. The other piece, too, is ongoing discussions, the superintendent's roundtable, working with different state and local officials regarding on the funding formula. An opportunity to sit down with Senator DeZoglios, Diana. A lot easier for me to pronounce, you know.
Oh, that was tough.
But the senator was extremely receptive and really listening to area superintendents regarding the formula. And some of the big areas is healthcare, which we all know, but especially when it comes to operational budgets, special education costs with out-of-district placement, along with transportation, taking a look at the circuit breaker funding, Chapter 70. So we had an opportunity to also talk about social emotional learning, to really give the senator a lot of information on this bill and what they're trying to do. So, and that's been ongoing. The superintendents feel like this, you know, as they're revising this formula, it's really important for us, especially in the suburban areas, to give the information, because we feel we may not have a second shot at this this funding formula. So.
If I could just
Yeah,
add one thing.
sure.
I had the opportunity briefly to talk to Senator Diana at the mayor's inauguration.
Should we all say this together 3 times?
No, I would rather not be on video saying it. And she also would like to extend an opportunity for us to talk with her in a roundtable setting soon, as these bills are getting put on the table. She'd really like to have that conversation with us, so I think I'll work with the superintendent to try to make that happen.
Great.
Yeah, I was very encouraged by that.
She had her first one last Monday, but it was a difficult night for, because I said Mondays won't work typically because of city council or school committee. So she understood that. I think about 8 people who came to her first one. But she wants to, keep the kinds of dialogue going, especially since her district is so broad-based between, Lawrence and Newburyport. It's all very real different needs.
She's a lot of energy, though, I'll give her that.
She's been great.
Represent us very well. Sorry, go ahead.
No. The Green Expo, which is happening at the Knock on April 11th. So, working with the community members here, We have 40 businesses and city departments will be part of this. 30 nonprofit groups will be coming in. They've 20 speakers along with 2 to 3 student presentations that night. And we'll provide a lot more detail as we get closer to that event. So that's, I think, another event where we're going to bring a lot of community members together. Hello Spring. We had the great opportunity, the mayor and I, to be at the Hello Spring event this Saturday. I think in a future school committee meeting, I'd like to really recognize our National Honor Society students that were key helpers and volunteers there, along with our Art Society, who did the t-shirt design and a lot of the face painting. Once again, it was just a wonderful event, and really want to thank Jessica Olson and Youth Services for this. Anytime we can bring the community together, I just think it's what it's all about. And it was just a great event, and I got to be a cupcake judge. So that's in my wheelhouse right there, you know? Except I only had 4 cupcakes that I sampled, while there was a couple hundred there to eat. Yes, the mayor got chocolate, I got yeah.
Clearly, there was no role for the school committee in that contest. Or I would have heard, I know that I would have heard and been invited,
but that's, there's been a lot of great things going on, and that's kind of our update. And as we know, the Youth Art Month is this week, March 4th to the 29th, and the student art exhibits are here at the Senior Center.
Wonderful. They're really, really nice on the way out.
The art exhibit that the students have here.
Oh, okay.
Subcommittee reports, Joanna did just meet. We spent, I thought, a very productive hour in conversation about the budget process, where the budget is at to this date, how this process is altered slightly from previous ones, and it was a very amicable, very, very constructive conversation, I thought. You guys were there, you were there, Dave. It was very helpful, I think. Finance?
Next meeting is on March 19th.
Great. The policy?
Next meeting, March 16th.
Superintendent's evaluation has not met. Are there any other announcements?
I said one. I just wanted to add to the art show, there's going to be the reception for the show here this Thursday at 4:30. So if any of you can come.
My daughter,
That would be great.
artwork was picked, so I was pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's great.
That's Thursday.
Thursday,
Who
yes,
knew?
at 4:30.
I would also take the liberty of mentioning, even though it doesn't directly affect schools, on, I believe, March 16th at the Actors Studio, there will be, as part of Women's Her Story Month, an old-time vintage radio performance of 3 shows from the 30s and 40s with local actors, being directed by yours truly. So it's really a lot of fun.
Help me out, do we have to go, or are we listening to?
No. You can do both. You can wear sunglasses if you'd like, but it's a performance at the Actors Studio of
Performing the radio shows.
performing the radio shows in
Got
the
it.
style in which they were performed in the 30s and 40s. The Actors Studio at the Tannery.
But it is a visual performance.
It is a
It's not-
visual-
We're
it is
not
a
watching
quite-
you talk into
It is a
microphone.
quite visual performance. I actually went out and found a pair of two-tone shoes to wear for the performance, so.
That would be
We will
visual.
be dressed in full 30s regalia, doing sound effects and that should be fun.
So are we talking very fast and higher pitch, like those old radio shows?
Yeah, no, it should be, there's, the 3 plays are a soap opera called Our Gal Sunday, which asks the question, can a young girl from a mining town in Colorado find happiness as the wife of a very handsome and rich British lord?
Are you the handsome and rich British lord?
No, I'm not. Then there's My Friend Irma, and then the daughter, the Devil's Daughter, a little horror science fiction film. All performed with the original scripts.
Is it Woody Lee Tracy and Seabiscuit?
Yeah, it's what it's gonna be like.
In the background?
Yeah. All right, thank you very much. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There are no abstentions, nobody voted present. We're out of here.